Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tipshraney. Welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside Now. Today, I think you'll enjoy the program. It'll be a unique program. We have two CEOs with two Chandler-related companies. One is a larger company. The other one is a smaller company that is a growing company. So we have from Aero-Zone, founder and CEO, Alfredo Dreyfus, and from Rogers Corporation, we have Bruce Hochner. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Rogers is our big corporate company. Aero-Zone is our up-and-coming corporate company. And so, yeah, it's really exciting to have you here. And we'll talk to both of you throughout the next half hour. Thought I'd start with you, Alfredo, and talk a little bit about your company. You founded Aero-Zone. Tell the customers or tell the citizens what that company does and a little bit about your beginnings and what have you.
First of all, thank you very much, Jay, for the invitation. Very happy to be here on your local talk show.
Yes.
Aero-Zone was founded by me in June of 1994. We sell airplane parts, commercial airplane parts primarily. We buy them, we sell them, we trade them, we repair them. We're based in Chandler. We've been a locally based company for a long time. We've recently, in 2014, expanded to Europe, and last year expanded to Singapore. We basically stock the material for the commercial airlines that break down most commonly. So when your viewers are sitting on an airplane in a tarmac and they say it's going to be an hour delay, that's actually pretty quick. That's when we come into play and deliver those parts as quickly as possible to that airline to get them back up in the air.
And when I first met you, it's been about 4 or 5, 6 years, you told me about some stories where literally there's a plane on the tarmac and for whatever reason they need that part. You are one of those companies that will supply that part, FedEx it or Federal Express it, however, get it to them so they can get that plane up in the air. And
yes, we're actually in distribution networks around the world. So we use FedEx, DHL, UPS, all the local, all the usual carriers that everyone knows. We also use companies like LaserShip and Sterling and the couriers that go out of their way to get the parts there fast. And Arizona is a great hub for aviation. We have our airport here, which is one of the largest airports in the country. Southwest, it's their 6th biggest hub. I think American Airlines pushes something like 20 million passengers through. We use those same routes of transportation to put airplane parts in their luggage to get them to the airport for whatever airline might need that part there. So this is a great southwestern distribution center for us.
Yeah, it's really, and you're located out by Chandler Air Park.
Yep, we're at Chandler Airport at Gilbert Road and Germain.
Okay, yeah.
We've got about 55 employees there now.
Awesome. It's a very good story.
Thank you.
Bruce, thanks for being with us today. Rogers is a little different. It's a larger company. I think it's a public company, right? Yeah. And it's got a significant history. Maybe a little bit about your background and then maybe a little bit about Rogers Corporation as we know it today.
First of all, thanks for having Rogers and having me with you today. Rogers has been a part of Chandler's business base for about over 50 years. I started with Rogers about 6 years ago. Came to them from Dow Chemical, Roman Haas, both chemical companies, after about 30 years. And I spent much of my career running various businesses around the world. Spent 10 years living in Asia, actually in Singapore for a few years, Thailand and China. So I have a very good feel for international business and so forth, what it takes. And Rogers itself, as I mentioned, has been here for about 50 years, but has a long history. We were founded in 1832 as a paper company. And over the years, we've transitioned into various electronic materials and other materials, specialty materials that are used in a bunch of different applications.
Right. And it's interesting. I don't think people realize, I mean, Rogers' history in Chandler. Rogers started in Chandler in 1967. Well, Chandler was a farming community then. Now somebody comes in and says, oh yeah, well, Rogers, that's a natural fit. Chandler's this innovation and technology hub. Perfect. But Rogers was here long before Chandler was an innovation and technology hub. You were here when we were cattle and citrus and cotton and what have you. So your forefounders had some pretty good foresight. You were our first high-tech company.
Right,
so
even before Intel.
Before Intel, long before Intel.
Right.
You know, a good 13, 14 years. So really some good foresight on folks. And with you, you've been with the company 6 years. When did you become CEO, or have you been?
I joined as CEO.
You joined as CEO.
Right, right.
Okay.
And so we've transitioned quite a bit. I mean, changed the company extensively, almost doubled its size in the last 6 years. A lot of it through just organic growth, and some of it also through acquisitions.
Yeah. And you moved out to Chandler. When did you move to Chandler? I mean, the Chandler area.
Yeah. The headquarters of the company moved about 2 years ago.
Right.
I moved in that time frame as well.
Were there. And I don't know if our audience understands the significance of that move, because you come from a town called Rogers, Connecticut.
Yes.
The town was named after the corporation.
Yes.
So for you to move and I know you still will have a presence there, but it was a significant decision to make that move, I would think.
Yeah, it was actually, and it's one that a lot of thought went into it. We looked at a lot of different alternatives. We were very comfortable with Chandler, with so many years of experience here, and of course the relationship that we have with the city of Chandler, with the state of Arizona. We were looking to really change the dynamic of the company, be much more oriented towards higher tech, higher growth. We have a lot of customers in Silicon Valley, so proximity to Silicon Valley is very important. Of course, this is a much more cost-effective place for us to position ourselves, and so that was all in the thought process that went into moving the headquarters out here.
And you considered some other locations besides Chandler, obviously, in your due diligence. And
right.
What were some of those locations?
Sure. Some other places around Phoenix area,
Okay.
but more importantly, we also looked at places in North Carolina, Colorado, and Denver, and also in Austin, in Texas. And again, when we looked at sort of the composition of the workforce, proximity to very good airport and infrastructure, it made a lot of sense to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here, and
we're thrilled.
Good partner.
Thanks.
So Alfredo, back to you. You made a decision 4 or 5 years ago to move from Mesa to Chandler and into our air park area out there by the city's airport. Kind of talk about what went into that decision, why you said, okay, Chandler might be the place for us, because you again, like Rogers, could have gone anywhere. And
it was full circle for us, because we had started in Chandler, moved to Mesa, and we bought our building, I think it was 2010, when we bought the building that we're in now. And it was basically a shell, and it had been left over from the 07-08 debacle. And nobody had moved, the real estate debacle. And it had, no one had ever moved in. There was no offices or anything. And actually called the city and networked through some friends of mine, including yourself.
Right.
And the lack of bureaucracy, I guess, if you will, or the ease of moving into Chandler and buying the building and building it out was very it was very attractive to us.
Right.
And so Chandler was just a great fit, and it's been a great fit for us ever since. We love being in Chandler. It's a good town. And
you're not the only company that does the air parks recycling in Chandler. You have a couple of your competitors that are actually in Chandler. What do you think's driven that to where we have more than just you, but a couple others that do a similar business?
Well, we have some great companies here in town, and you might call them competitors. We'd call them friendly competitors because we all trade back and forth. We have great symbiosis or synergy, if you will.
Right.
And we have companies in town. I'll give them a quick plug. Turbo Resources is fantastic, of course.
On Arizona Avenue.
Yes, and then we also have Salt River Aviation, which is right next door to us, and a few other companies. We have Aviocraft, our repair station. That is here locally, and there's several large companies that are here too. We've got, of course, Honeywell and McDonnell Douglas. Well, I mean Boeing now, the old McDonnell Douglas, and here in town. But it's been a great place for commercial aviation. You know, we don't have some of the things that some of the other big cities around the country have. We don't have any of the natural disasters per se. No hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes like in California. We also don't have the issues with rust here, so that makes it very lucrative. And then we also have some great boneyards. We've got the Davis-Monthan one for military, and then we've got Goodyear and Marana. So a lot of maintenance happens there, where it's less expensive to do the maintenance there than at the airports themselves.
Right.
A lot of companies park their aircraft there, resell airplanes from there, or tear them down. And so there's just Arizona as a whole has been a great hub for commercial aviation.
Do you foresee some expansion on your end? And
absolutely.
You're just growing your current business or getting into other
There's
areas?
never been a better time in commercial aviation. I was at a conference in San Diego recently, and Boeing had a rep that spoke to everybody, and so did Airbus. They followed each other. And I believe Boeing had something like 8 years of back orders, and Airbus had 6 years of back orders. So there's a lot of business with the new aircraft, the 737 MAX, the 777, the Dreamliners, the A380s are number one in customer satisfaction for the experience when they fly in the A380. So the commercial airline industry just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And we plan on supporting them, our customers worldwide from Chandler.
That's great.
Yes.
We like the recognition. Bruce, back to you. Chandler's kind of been a hotbed for autonomous vehicles. I mean, we kind of latched onto the Waymo thing, or Waymo latched onto the Chandler thing. I don't know how it worked, but they've been a significant presence in Chandler, and that's how they started their region presence. It was in Chandler. Intel, all of a sudden we saw them in the same area with the autonomous vehicle, and you could see their vehicles on the road. And then we've had GM Innovation Center that's involved with that and other areas. But talk a little bit about your company's involvement with autonomous vehicles, and then why, again, did this all happen in Chandler in the East Valley for all of this testing and what have you?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic. So Rogers' involvement with autonomous vehicles is really around the radar systems. So blind spot detection, adaptive cruise control, understanding through the radar systems what's surrounding the car. And we've been working to improve the materials so they're even more finite and more detailed in terms of the images that they can project out or understand. And so we work very closely with the automotive OEMs and also tier one folks as well, who build all of these systems and incorporate our materials in them. And so we see this as a great growth opportunity. And actually, many of these materials are made right here in Chandler. That are used around the world. And I think the reason that a lot of the autonomous vehicle testing is here is the infrastructure of the road systems is relatively easy to navigate for these types of cars. And I think there's been also a lot of openness in terms of the government to allow these vehicles to be tested and so forth.
Yeah. I'll be right back to you. I'm going to reintroduce the show.
Okay.
I'm Mayor Jay Tibshaney. You're watching Chandler Inside and Out today. I want to thank you for joining us. Bruce, back to you. With the autonomous vehicle and your involvement with that, the citizens, though, I mean, when you talk about Rogers and what they're making and what they're doing, maybe you can share with the audience a little bit about what you actually, some of the components you make, or that they can maybe relate to.
Sure.
Because we have a lot of high-tech companies, and they all do something unique and different, whether it be Intel or Microchip or Rogers. Or you all have unique fields that you're involved with.
Right. So specifically in autonomous vehicles and so forth, what we manufacture and sell to component suppliers is the material that's used to actually transmit the radar signal and receive the radar signal. And its design has to be able to do that in a way where there's very little interference and very crisp response. And so we call it low noise and so forth. And so we've really over the years developed significant expertise. We started in this business probably 50 years ago with the US government in their radar systems, probably even longer than that. Every spacecraft that has left Earth orbit has had Rogers material on it as well for transmission and telecom. We are also involved even beyond the radar system materials in things like 4G and 5G base stations for cell phones, also antenna systems that are associated with them. We're also involved in a lot of other things. It's a variety of materials, including foams, specialty foams that are used in the NFL for shoulder pads. So if you look at the NFL players today versus maybe 15, 20 years ago, the shoulder pads are much smaller. The padding is much more compact, and that really has a lot to do with our technology.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So we have not only electronics, but also things like these foams that are used quite extensively in sporting.
Interesting. When you guys made the decision to move to Chandler, then you invested a significant investment into your facility, maybe both of them. I know the one at Chandler and Dobson, you invested significant amounts into that. Maybe talk about what kind of changes you made there and what kind of investments you made there.
So with the headquarters, we reconfigured part of an older production building, about 25,000 square feet, for our corporate staff of about 90 to 100 people. So our CFO and all the executives are now here in Chandler. We also, in that same building, repurposed it to make actually 2 production lines that make the radar system materials.
Really?
And we're adding also some what we call presses to produce circuit boards, circuit materials that are used in telecom. So for the 5G, 4G, and so forth over in Roosevelt. So we continue to expand. But I think the most exciting thing for me, because we are an innovation company, we've put in our 3rd innovation center here in Chandler, in the Dobson building. So right by the CVS there. And what we're doing there is specifically around antenna systems for telecom. And that's a big growth opportunity for us.
So a lot of research
work? Yes, we have research technologists that are developing next generation antenna systems for 4G and 5G.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people, they know we have all these high-tech companies, but I think a lot of times they don't relate to exactly what those high-tech things that they're doing are all about.
Sure.
So yeah, thanks for that explanation. Sure. Wanted to ask you both, and I'll start with you, Alfredo. Talk a little bit, just in general, and maybe this answers your question you were asking me before we started taping, about the business climate in Chandler and in Arizona. Maybe talk about that, Arizona, Chandler, both.
So I'll tell you, from a business climate perspective and from my perspective, this is a great place to do business right now. In fact, we have a hard time finding talent here locally. Sometimes we've got to bring it in from outside the state because the unemployment here is so low.
Yeah.
So from a purely business aspect, that's probably one of the hardest battles that we have.
Finding good people.
Finding good people who don't already have, a job where they're content.
Right.
But other than that, this is just a great climate for business. From an aviation perspective, I've already kind of mentioned that it's fabulous. So yeah, we're looking forward to growing and expanding here, and we've got big plans already. We just built a building right next door to our building. So our building's about 33,000 square foot, and we built 40,000 square foot just next door, and we're contemplating planning expansion beyond that too.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about you. You're always looking to the future. And it's interesting. It's a good problem that we have the labor shortage, because that means we have low unemployment. But then for our employers, it's kind of hard because you're looking for your people. Right. You're probably looking for a lot of engineers. Sure. And how is it with you at Rogers?
It's very similar in a sense. I mean, even as we look for folks, looking for engineers, looking for even accountants and so forth, it's a bit tough because of the labor market and the way it's gone. But again, when we look at the interactions that we have with the state and with the municipality, with Chandler, the support, and I saw it very clearly when we made the transition with the headquarters, the support that was provided, the guidance and so forth, was very helpful to us and really kind of moved us quickly to make that decision to come here.
I would completely agree with that.
Yeah. It's an interesting point about labor. When we were out looking at other locations, one of the things that I think we need to be aware of here in Arizona and Chandler is that there's a lot of competition, right? And you have these low-tax states like Nevada, Texas, that are looking to pull a lot of what I call the brain drain out of California, Silicon Valley, into other locations. So I just think we need to be cognizant here in Arizona that there is competition out there for these good companies and good employers.
So would a lot of that be tax policy or partially tax policy?
Good.
Making sure Dr. Crow's putting out plenty of engineers too.
Right. Well, you know, ASU, University of Arizona, great engineers, and we hire many of them and so forth. I think it has to do with tax policy. I think it also has to do with developing and continuing to develop the education system here in Arizona. Now, Chandler, you know, we have a lot of folks who live here in Chandler that work for Rogers. Very pleased with the education K through 12. But I think, again, to attract these high-tech companies, education is extremely important to the parents and so forth. So again, continuing to work in that vein is important, and continuing to build out the infrastructure, the roads, the airport. The airport's a great airport, certainly. For us, we wish we had more international direct travel. You know, to go to Asia, we go to Asia a lot, so we fly through LA or San Francisco. And also to Europe.
Because there's no direct out of Sky Harbor.
There's no direct out of Sky Harbor. To Europe, there's a couple to Heathrow, and I think maybe also to Belgium, or Munich. But that's something that we have interest in, and you know, as companies come here and relocate more internationally focused, another area of development, I think, for the region.
Yeah, and for us, if I can add to that.
Yeah, please.
We hire at our repair station avionics technicians and engineers, and we do hire from the Chandler Gilbert Community Aviation Program and from the ASU program. There's a great aviation program at ASU, and it's worked wonderfully for us. So we love that.
So it kind of fits right in.
It fits right in
what you guys are doing.
Well, we need more technicians to come through those programs, but it absolutely does. And it's not just here in Arizona with us. I mean, I hear this really around the country and around the world with aviation companies. We're constantly struggling to find good avionics and just repairmen in general. Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, talking to you two today, and then earlier before the taping, I was talking to a contractor who's having a labor shortage too, finding people, good framers or folks for his construction projects. And so we have engineers, we have your technicians, we have the framers. It's overall a sign of a good economy is it's hard to get people, and we need more people, and so it's interesting to see that occurring just like it did before the big bubble in 2007. So that's a challenge. Any other things as you guys look over the next 5 to 10 years on the horizon, whether it be local or state or national challenges that might be worth mentioning? Bruce, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, you know, like most international companies, like your company, Alfredo, as well, we've set ourselves up for an environment that has pretty much open trade and free trade. And I think as we step out here and we see some of this tariff coming along and perhaps some trade wars developing, it's a bit of a concern, right? So we need to really be cognizant of that. Once assets are put in place, I mean, these are, you know, big factories, hard to move them. Now, for Rogers, we have capability to produce in Asia, here in Arizona, in the Northeast U.S. and also in Europe. So we can kind of move around depending on what happens. But I think for many companies, it's a bit of a challenge and creates a lot of uncertainty. So as companies start thinking about where's my next, you know, I have to expand, where's my next investment going to go, it's a bit of a tough one to figure out. Because you usually try to figure where the market's going to be, where's the lowest cost, closest to customers, and this is in a transition point. So uncertainty is a bit of an issue here.
Yeah, with the tariff, and I know there's a lot of the talk with China's on the bigger scale, but with trade and tariffs and how that, and I think that's kind of what you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the same with us. The very same things affect us. We do quite a bit of trade in Europe and European partnering countries like Switzerland and Turkey and Israel, and especially in Turkey right now with some of the talk that's been going around with the tariff and the threats of tariff, it affects us immediately.
Because there's a lot of your customer base. I mean, you have some customer base in Turkey.
We do. Turkish Technique, Turkish Airlines, they're all our customers. I mean, we have customers on 6 continents.
Right.
And our largest customer, just to put it in perspective, last year was only about 4% of our total business. So we're pretty spread out. Right. So we do a little bit of business with everyone in the world. But those little pockets, we feel it immediately, and they're very vocal about it. You know, so we're hoping that the tariffs are just a negotiating tool and we get past them quickly.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, because I mean, I think the administration understands the ramifications that could have on their pro-business administration. So a lot of it's jockeying and negotiating, but again, it does affect, you know, current day decisions as people are trying to plan for the future. So hopefully that'll all work out. Just got a couple minutes left here. Maybe if I could impose on you guys, if you were trying to sell Chandler, how would you sell Chandler to a prospective business that called you and said, hey, I'm thinking of locating in Chandler. What do you think? I'll start with you, Bruce.
Since we did it.
Yes.
So I would say a couple things. First of all, the relationships between Chandler and our company and between just the business pro-business outlook of Chandler and the state and greater Phoenix area is very, very helpful. And so we found that extremely helpful. I would also say that despite the fact that the labor market's a bit tight, the quality of individuals here that we're seeing is very high. Right. It's a question of kind of pulling them away from where they are today. Right. I would also say the road infrastructure is very good. You know, coming from the Northeast, there's no potholes. It's pretty impressive. But I think it also flows pretty well. I mean, given the size of the greater Phoenix area of 5.5 million people, I think it's pretty well engineered. I think, again, this is an area that we need to continue to invest in and continue to expand. And also, I think the infrastructure at the airport and the fact that, Sky Harbor is a very strong, certainly continental U.S. location for air travel. So I think when you take all of these into consideration, plus great weather most of the year.
Most of the year.
And if you like real hot weather, it's good all of the year. Yeah. But I think, you know, you don't have the weather conditions that you had mentioned earlier, tornadoes and sort of things also. So from a geographic location, proximity to West Coast also, where there's a lot of development going on, for us, it's a great place.
What would you add to that?
I would add to that it's, and I agree with everything you said wholeheartedly, but it's extremely family friendly. The main street, if you will, here on Chandler Boulevard is fantastic. Yes. Great events, great schools. The housing, even though there's a shortage here currently in supply, the housing market is still much more reasonable than when you look at places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, et cetera. So I think it's a great place to pool quality employees from other places to move to. And Chandler's been fabulous. And we've got some employees that have just recently moved to the Chandler area, and they absolutely love it. I
might have to get the economic development department to hire you two to help sell Chandler.
Happy to help.
Well, I appreciate both of you being out today and talking about your companies. You both have unique companies to our city, and we appreciate Aero-Zone, we appreciate Rogers, and we appreciate both of your histories here and your future. I think it looks spectacular for both of you. So thanks for being in studio today.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Great. I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. You've been watching Chandler Inside and Out. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about two of our businesses in Chandler. Until I see you again, take care and be safe.